What does mindset, feminine energy, and connecting to your body all have in common? Well, they are the techniques that today's guest used to fall pregnant not once, not twice, but 3 times when she was over the age of 40, all naturally. And they're also the techniques that she shares and teaches with women all over the world today. So stay tuned. All of that and more is coming up on today's episode. Welcome to Your Journey to Fertility. This is the podcast that blends both science with spirit to give you all the tools you need as you navigate your fertility journey. I'm your host, Jennifer Edmonds, and for the last 15 years, I've been helping women on their journeys to motherhood and beyond. I believe that combining the latest scientific research along with the best energetic and mindset practices will help you to avoid putting your life on hold and bring you closer to your baby. Here each week, you'll learn ways to support your fertility and trust your body so you can stop stressing that you'll never have a baby and finally walk your path to motherhood. This is the Your Journey to Fertility podcast. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I have a really fun episode coming up for you. So my guest today is the very well-known fertility coach, Elizabeth King. And Elizabeth has an amazing fertility story of her own. She shares a lot about it on her social media. So she actually froze her eggs at aged 36. But years later, after she'd gotten married and she decided she wanted to start a family, she actually found out that none of those eggs that she had frozen were viable. So she embarked on a fertility journey all from scratch at the age of 40. And she was able to work on her mindset, her approach to her connection with her body, and just the way that she looked at the possibilities within her own journey. And she was able to fall pregnant naturally at age 41, 42, and 44 and have 3 healthy kids. So Elizabeth is now a certified life and fertility coach, and she specializes in helping women make these same mindset shifts that they need to move from feeling, stuck and overwhelmed on their journeys of trying to conceive to feeling at ease and at peace with their path forward. Elizabeth also now runs a worldwide training program for those who are wanting to become a fertility coach. So in short, she knows a lot about this process. So I'm really excited for you to hear this conversation. Let's get started. Here's Elizabeth. Elizabeth, welcome to the podcast. I'm so thrilled to have you here today. Big welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So for those who aren't familiar with you, and I think that might be a little bit hard to imagine, but just in case people haven't come across your work, can you tell us a little bit more about you and what you do?
I am a fertility coach. I work mainly now, it seems, with international people. I reside in the US, but I have clients all over the world. And the beauty about that, I feel like specifically with fertility, is that it's such a universal feeling. It's such a universal experience. And no matter where you are, you can still relate to what's happening with your body, with your mind, with your spirituality, with your relationship, all of the things. In most cases, the medications that are prescribed are the same around the world. So we are able to touch on all the things. What I say around fertility coaching specifically and what we do is we really focus on the mind, body, and spirit. So we do not disregard the medical, although I am a firm believer in all things natural as much as we can. I've had so many patients come to me who had struggled and tried for many years only to find out that they had something structurally going wrong. So I always say, go see a fertility doctor, get the lay of the land. Don't be afraid to go. Just know that it's a regular checkup, a step further than your gynecologist, because your gynecologist isn't specializing in fertility, and then go from there. So
isn't that so true? It is such a universal thing, and it just doesn't discriminate, no matter where you're from. It doesn't always discriminate against age. And it seems that it is such a thing that we are all experiencing the world over, isn't it? It's just becoming more and more prevalent. Yeah.
Right.
I love what you talk about in terms of managing the mind-body connection when you are trying to conceive. And obviously that is something that I teach so much as well. And so what does that mind-body connection mean for you? And how do you get your clients and your people that you work with to get into that kind of state?
Well, the mind body connection is so important. And I think most people don't recognize the importance of it until you're in a situation where you know it's important, right? You're infertility, you're stressed about being stressed because you know you're not supposed to be stressed when you're trying to get pregnant. And then you feel like, okay, well, how do I get myself out of this? And it's different for everybody. I think that's where working with a coach that can really guide you for you is so important, and feeling in alignment with that, because meditation frustrates some people. Even though we know there's science behind it and it works, for some people, it gets frustrating because they think they're doing it wrong or whatever. Sometimes journaling is not right for somebody, et cetera. So we really find what's going to help your cortisol level get lower, what's going to help balance your nervous system. That could be cooking, that could be coloring, that could be doing something totally different that you think, okay, well, this really isn't what I would traditionally be calling the mind-body connection. For some people, it's swimming. They say that's their meditation, right? Because they get in this zone of just really keeping everything outside of themselves, really. And a good way that I recommend for people to do that is to hold on to their wrist and or their neck and find their pulse. Feel what it's like to physically connect with your body. And once you can physically feel that blood pumping through your body, that heart, I happen to be wearing a heart shirt today. That heart is one of the first things that is built as a human life, right? When we see that little baby embryo, the heartbeat at 6 and 7 weeks is the first thing that comes on board, right? And when we can connect back with our own blood pumping through our body, our own heart, and figure out intuitively, what is it that I need on this journey? Who is it that I need? I always talk about building up your fertility team. What does that look like? Who are those people that are going to be there to support me on this path? And that's really an easy way to get connected with yourself and anybody can do that. It's not meditation, journaling, et cetera, et cetera. It's just taking a second, find your pulse, and just connect with that. And that starts to bring you closer back to yourself, closer back to your intuition, closer back to the decisions that you need to make in regards to your life, your fertility journey, et cetera.
Such a fantastic, easy little way just to bring awareness back to your body, isn't it? Because, you think about it whenever I have a new student, and, the first thing I usually do in a session is, we sit down, we lie down, we breathe, and then we place hands over the body. And I remember the first time that I did a session like this when I was struggling to conceive, I just thought, I can't remember the last time I actually took a really deep breath. And my God, how good does that feel, just to let things go and just to ask your body what it needs, And I feel like when you are going down the medical route of fertility treatments, your body is just taken away from you so quickly, isn't it? It's blood test after blood test and scans, and you just become a bit of a number. And it's, my lab results show this, my scan results show that, and it's really impersonal. So anything that I think we can do to bring awareness back to the body is just so incredibly helpful.
Absolutely. The mind is so powerful to our body. And that's where it goes back to that question of the mind-body connection. I often use the example of somebody who's anorexic, right? Their mind is so powerful. The thoughts of their mind has convinced them themselves that their body actually is sick, and sometimes even hospitalized. So the power of the thoughts that we have and the connection to our body, if you almost look at them as two different entities, and how can they become friends? What's going to be serving the other and one in the other, and connecting with each other in a friendly way? Because so often, especially on a fertility journey, you're not friendly with your body and your mind, right? You're either too old, you're something in your system's not working. Why isn't that? I'm broken. I'm this, I'm that. It's not a kind words are not exchanging between your mind and your body. And so having that connection is really, really helpful to be aware of the thoughts that are creating the feelings for yourself.
And then going another step deeper on top of that, what do you think it means to connect with your feminine energy? And why do you think that this is important when you're trying to conceive as well?
I mean, it's important because we live in such a world that whether we are thinking we're living in a feminine way, most of us really aren't. We're doing a lot of things. Even as little as 50 years ago, life was very different in our societies. We're on two different places of the world, but even still, we're very similar. Whereas most women 50 years ago weren't running the household, running businesses, and taking care of the children and all the things. Now we're doing all of the things. And as we do that, the feminine energy starts to get less and less because we're doing more masculine things as well. Not on purpose, just because that's the way that it is. So doing the small things sometimes to make yourself feel more feminine, and that's different for everybody. So I'm not here to say everybody go put on a dress and do whatever, but you do know how you tend to feel a little different when you're wearing a dress or you're wearing a skirt or something like that. Something changes a little bit. You do feel, or lipstick. The what I'm wearing right now, I call my Zoom lipstick that I keep by my desk. But that's something that, okay, it is true. When I put that on, I do feel like I'm more put together, so to speak, right? A little bit more feminine. If I wear earrings or something of that, when I was studying the masculine, feminine energy 15 years ago, my teacher at the time, he was saying how, I would throw on a baseball hat and wear my Lululemon stuff. And he would mention that's a very masculine thing to do. And I'm like, but I'm not at all, and he's like, but that idea of that is very masculine. You don't see women around Europe that are very feminine and whatever, walking around with a baseball hat on. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so right. Not that I don't ever wear a baseball hat anymore, but I don't very often, because to me, I realize that is a masculine look. That is ideally something that you normally would see a man wear. So doing the small things, I'm going to choose to cook something. That's creating. Creating energy is feminine energy. We want to create a human life. So what can we do to create? So again, coloring or playing with Play-Doh, something like that. All of those things start to bring out your creativity and your femininity. So whether that's gardening or any of the above, it's being aware of how can I be more feminine in all things. And it's not about putting the male in a different perspective. It's really about focusing on your own energy. It's not about anything with men. And I've had somebody bring that up with me recently. And I thought, oh no, we're totally missing the point. It's all about yourself and how you show up. And if you choose to, bring your male partner into that, great. If you're in a same-sex relationship, it's still being feminine, still having that feminine energy if that's the role that you're playing. I always say, look out your window. The animals that are out there living in nature, they're staying in their lane. They're being in their roles. They're just going along with what it is that they're meant to be doing. And we are so far off the path in our societies by doing all the things and really making that a practice to say, what does femininity look like for me? And how can I practice that a little more?
I think that's such an important point to make because, obviously we have so many students, and I'm sure you have so many clients who are, struggling to have their second or third child as well. So like you said, they are managing a family and they're working a 9 to 5 or they're running a business. So how can we approach that side of our life in a more feminine way? Even when, you've got to go to work, you've got to get kid ready for school. There's no way around that. So what can we do?
Home is, well, it depends on what your home life is. I feel like when you're talking about getting ready for school, I'm thinking about my home getting ready for school, and it's complete madness.
Not feminine.
No, it's get out the door, hurry up, get your shoes on, whatever needs to happen. It's more like a drill sergeant situation than anything in the morning. But when you're going out to work or you're going to get a coffee at the coffee shop, let somebody open the door for you. Again, it doesn't need to be male or female. It doesn't matter. But when somebody opens the door for you or you allow that, take a second in your brain to say, I'm receiving, I'm accepting of somebody doing something for me. Feminine energy is in the act of receiving. It's the moon energy. We're receiving that energy. So it can be, hey, let me help you with this. Great. If you're traveling, ask somebody to put your suitcase up. We want to acknowledge the fact that we don't have to do everything. Yes, we can do pretty much everything. But the act of doing is masculine. So we want to receive. What can that look like? Hey, I want to buy you a coffee from a friend. Even if that's a female friend, amazing. Thank you so much. I will receive that. That's being in feminine energy. So finding those little things and or offering to serve somebody else something can, depending on how you're doing, like in your mind, for me, that's very feminine because that's not a natural state for me to be cooking and serving people and whatever. But in my mind, I think in the traditional archetypes, that's what I think of, a woman kind of making the dinner and doing all the things and kind of being at home and cooking and doing all that. So for me, that is part of a feminine thing. If I can say, hey, can I get you a drink? Can I get you whatever it may be? I'm aware that I am serving in a feminine way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And you're right. It isn't about male and female, is it? It really is just about your own energy and which way that kind of leans. I know I love talking about this kind of stuff. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see women and couples making when they first come to you and, perhaps they've been on this journey for a while or they've just started going down the route of perhaps seeing a doctor? So what are some of the things that you see constantly coming up?
So I would say most people, unfortunately, that come to me have been down the path for quite a while. And so they're at a pretty low point at that stage. And one of the biggest things that I see, and I was mentioning this today on an earlier call, is they're holding on so tight. And that holding on so tight is a form of desperation. And it feels desperate. I was there. I remember that feeling all too well. If somebody said, stand on your head and turn around 3 times, I'd be like, okay, I'll do that. I was desperate to be pregnant and not have my period start every month. And, that's the only word I could say. And once you start to let go and receive and realize, okay, I need to focus on this other aspect of myself, because we lose ourselves on this fertility journey. We lose our connection with our intuition. And once you start to let go and not hold on so tight, we're not letting go of that dream. We're not letting go of that knowing that I'm meant to be a parent, but we're letting go of the doing. We're letting go of that. If I don't, take every single supplement, if I don't cut out all my dairy, gluten, and sugar, I'm not going to get pregnant and whatever. When you start to relax and let yourself connect with yourself, that's when things start to get into place. That's when the magic starts to happen, because it may not result in the pregnancy right away. Although I would say most people we see in the first 3 months of starting to get on track with everything, they do end up getting pregnant. It's more of the other things around their life that starts to unfold because they are showing up different. It's the energy and the power of what you put out of what comes back to you. And there's lots of reasons that people don't get pregnant. But a big part of that is that it starts to perpetuate itself because we get into this place of desperation. And so I think that's one of the mistakes, that it's back to that comment of you're stressed about being stressed. And then that place of desperation becomes a form of stress too. And so not realizing how they can get out of that is really it's kind of, when I see people, they're usually across Zoom and sometimes can barely even speak because they're so upset. And, they're at this point of, they're not where they want to be. And then they start to bloom and blossom like this beautiful person, and their face looks completely different than when we first met, because they reconnect with themselves and they reconnect with what's important. And this fertility journey is just a symptom of the path that they're on. It's just a part of where we're at in life. And I always say, it's not going to last forever. You will get to the other side. We're just going to help you get there as soon as possible and as happy as possible. We want you having fun, creating, etc. And we tend to get lost in the fertility calendar when we're on the path.
Oh, I so relate to that. And you're right. It's this, infertility is so all encompassing. It takes over every part of your life. It is just the first thing on your mind when you wake up. It's the last thing you think about when you go to sleep. And when you can start to shift some of that, I think that's where you see some amazing changes. And I
Yeah.
remember, I so relate to that feeling of desperation. But it was when I started noticing little changes in my life, like I could fall asleep more easily. I was nicer to my husband.
Mm-hmm.
All of these little things that my life isn't as miserable as I used to be. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when I fell pregnant. And it
Mm-hmm.
is getting out of that place of desperation, which is such a game changer, but not
Right.
an easy thing to do.
Right. And that's where it's so frustrating when you're in it, right? When somebody's
Mm.
like, oh, well, just don't be stressed and you'll get pregnant. Of course, it's not that easy, right? Like
Mm.
I remember wanting to slap someone across the face if I ever heard that one more
Yeah.
time. It's like, trust me, if that, just don't talk to me, you know. But it's a much, much bigger picture. And that's why we talk about this mind, body, spirit connection, the femininity, all of these things. It's a macro experience of your body on this journey in this 3D world of connecting to your spirit baby, the spirit contract between you and your partner, and whatever spirit baby's coming down for you. And there's so many different aspects that go into it, rather than just, I want to be pregnant by July 1st, right?
Mm.
Of course, we all wanted it yesterday, and that, unfortunately, for most of us, wasn't the case. But there's reasons for that, and trying to get our nervous system and our cortisol levels to relax into our life, and whatever it looks like at that time helps us to then open
Yeah,
to the possibility of conceiving.
exactly. And speaking about this idea of being able to regulate your nervous system and starting to balance out some of those cortisol levels, I'm sure you see this all the time, but you'll have people with really healthy cycles that
Hmm.
6, 12 months down the line of trying to conceive and things aren't going well, they start to
Hmm.
see their cycle going completely haywire. They're getting horrible, painful PMS. Ovulation is really hard to predict. Cycles will be short one month, longer the next month. I'm sure you see things like this as well. And
Hmm.
so much of it I find comes down to this constant cycle of being in a stress response. So,
Hmm.
what are some of the things that you offer to help with people who want to balance their hormones? I know that this term balance hormones is a very big one. I like to
Hmm.
break it down and say, let's reduce cortisol and allow some of the other hormones to kind of synchronize in their own natural way. But how
Hmm.
do you explain that? And what are the best ways you find to manage it?
And it's interesting. I don't know about you, but I see a lot of people who don't really even acknowledge the amount of stress that they have in their life,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
And our period, or our menstrual cycle for that matter, is the sixth vital sign of our body. So
Mm.
if you are having any imbalances in that way, or are you starting to have painful periods or whatever, that's basically your body knocking at your door saying, hey, there's something off balance. There's something that's out of whack. And usually it's the sleep or the stress around us that is causing that. So the
Mm.
first thing that I usually say to people is, from a natural perspective, is to do seed cycling. And I see that work so often with people of all ages, that it basically just gives their body the boost to kind of get back on track. And for anybody listening who's not familiar with that, it's basically consuming certain seeds at different times of the month. So day 1 through 14, you're having sesame seeds and sunflower seeds. Day 14, to help with the 1 through 14, is estrogen. I should slow down a little bit to explain a little better. And then day 14 through 28, given your cycle, is pumpkin and flax seeds. And that helps to increase the progesterone. That's a really easy way for people naturally to get that boost, to start to regulate their cycles back again. Of course, if you're doing all those things, but your environment is not changing, you're working against yourself, right? So I always say again, this is not forever. This is not a situation that's a forever thing. You want to figure out the self-preservation for you during this time of trying to conceive. So is that work? Do you need to slow down on work? Sometimes that's not possible for people. So what little change can you do in order to tweak your work life so that it isn't as stressful for you? Maybe you need to ask for some concessions with your boss or manager or something of that nature. Is it relationships with family members? Maybe you need to limit that. I see that very, very often with sister-in-laws and kind of family drama that people need to take some space from? Is it social media? Another thing where you don't even realize that subconsciously you're taking on other people's stories, other people's energy that's causing yourself stress because you can't unsee or unread what you just saw. And so you're taking on this energy of what if this happens to me because I saw this happen to Susie Q. So there's a lot of things that you need to take stock in your life to figure out, if I'm doing this, is it going to be enough to move the needle if everything else remains the same? Sometimes the answer is yes. And sometimes you really have to look like, no, I really need to make a change here with my job, or I really need to make a change here with my relationship or with yourself. A lot of times it's self-growth. What work do I need to do on myself in order to be able to regulate my nervous system? Is it going to a breathwork class? Is it taking time to get a massage once a week, or what, again, it's different for everybody. Getting back to something you love, like cooking or gardening,
These little things, they just add up so much, don't they? They have such a cumulative effect overall. But yeah, the thing you mentioned about relationships and family as well, that is one of the hardest ones. And you can't just not have them in your life, because that's not how
Right.
families work. But yes, I'm sure we can all relate to that as well.
Yes.
What would you say is kind of a sign or a red flag to signal to your journey or your situation that perhaps you need to seek support from someone other than a doctor?
I mean, I think you mentioned earlier that the fertility journey does become all consuming, and you realize that your productivity at work is suffering because it's all you can think about. You're not going out with friends because you're on some fertility diet, or you're seeing changes in your body that are not healthy. I think those are kind of the big red flags that I would say this is ruling your life, and you need to talk to somebody about that, because when you get so far off the track, it's more difficult to get back on the track, so to speak. So the more you can work with somebody who understands the language, understands what you are going through, is aligned with your beliefs and your philosophies, and can help to guide you in a way that feels good for you. You want to come away from those meetings feeling, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I invested my time and my money in that hour with this person, because I just feel so seen and heard. And even though you may have a partner that's amazing, that's not what they don't know, how to hold the space for you in a professional way to say, I got this for you. I'm here for you. Let's talk through some of these things. What is that going to look like to be going through this, and really giving yourself that ability to ask for help during that time.
Isn't that such a good point? We put so much on our partners, I think, in both ways. I think men and women both kind of rely on each other so much when we're going through these experiences, and we're not equipped to deal with it. As wonderful as our partners might be, it's not something they've experienced before either. So it is so worth noting that we often need more support than that. Elizabeth, thank you for everything that you have shared today. Are there any last little words or tips that you want to leave people with if they are struggling on their own journey?
Don't give up hope. I think that's the one thing that you always need to get back to, holding on to your pulse, connecting back with your body, and connecting back with the knowing that you will be and meant to be a parent. And just keep going forward. Find somebody that you can chat with, just to say, can I get that little piece of hope? Sometimes we need to borrow it from somebody when we don't feel it ourselves, and don't be ashamed of it. I think that's the one thing we're trying to destigmatize in our societies now, is this is a very common thing. Unfortunately, it's been swept under the rug for many years, and it's becoming more common, but it's also becoming more talked about, thank goodness. So it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to feel guilty about. You are not broken. There are many paths to parenthood now, which is amazing that we live in a world that is. And find somebody that can help guide you through that, so that you feel supported and you feel like there's some hope. And that may vary day to day or week to week with whatever you're going through. But always go back to, that knowing I am meant to be a parent, and try not to deviate from that, because that's what's going to be your guiding light through the dark storm when you're having those rough days of knowing that you're meant to be here for a reason.
I love that so much. Thank you. Elizabeth, where can people find you and connect with you and learn more about what you offer?
You can find me at my website, elizabethking.com, or on Instagram at the official Elizabeth King, and also on my podcast, Creation Innovation.
Yes, which is a wonderful podcast must listen to for anyone who is on this journey as well. Elizabeth, thank you so much for your time and for everything that you share and that you do for this community. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in today and listening to that conversation. I hope you got a lot out of that, because I feel like Elizabeth just has so much knowledge, and I feel like we could have gone on for a lot longer. But if you want to connect with her more, catch her on her Instagram, because she shares just some incredible tips and snippets from her own journey that I just find really inspiring. So next week on the podcast, I am sharing the 4 things that I did to up-level my life and my fertility when I was in the depths of trying to conceive. And these are really simple and easy shifts that you can start making within your own life too. I can't wait to share all of that and more on the next episode. So I will see you back here then next week. But until then, I am sending you all my wishes as you continue your own journey to fertility. The most common thing I hear from students who are on their fertility journey is that the stress of trying to conceive has taken over their life. Your days end up being filled with endless appointments, navigating pregnancy announcements. You're trying to eat right, take all your supplements, and it is all you think about from the moment you wake up. I designed the Element Fertility Yoga course to support your body, your mind, and your mental health in 3 important ways: to synchronize your hormones, increase circulation and blood flow, and to help regulate your nervous system. But on top of this, the greatest gift that you can give yourself throughout this journey is a sense of peace, to help you calm your mind and just make this process feel easier. Every single one of my students tell me that this is the first thing they notice after starting a yoga, meditation, and breathwork practice. But on top of this, you have the amazing benefit of actually supporting and increasing your fertility. Studies have shown that those participating in mind-body programs as they're trying to conceive have success rates 3 times greater than those who don't. The course I've designed walks you through natural conception as well as fertility treatments and IVF cycles. And the best part is you can work through it at your own pace in the comfort of your home. The practices start from just 10 minutes per day. To learn more, visit elementpilatesyoga.com or see the link in the show notes.